Pleasure to be here. Sorry, I'm a bit casual, came from work. I'm very surprised to see so many people here at the end of a Saturday afternoon. I'm glad that you all are very keen to learn, and I'm very happy. Healthy gut, healthy brain. What's the connection? When I'm a consultant surgeon in the Pan-Asia Surgery Group, but I'm also a visiting consultant with the MWH Medical Group, and I'm here by their invitation. I was very glad to accept this invitation to talk about healthy gut, because this is one of my favorite topics. I think it's something that is really, really, really important, something we never realized before. But a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, a lot of doctors and scientists around the world have begun to realize how important a healthy gut is to your healthy living and your feeling of well-being. In fact, gut health is now said to be a new objective in medicine. Okay, so a healthy gut can actually impact on your overall sense of well-being. What is a healthy gut? But you read the magazines and all that, they always talk about, gut health, gut health, gut health. But what is actually gut health? To the doctors, to the scientists, gut health has 5 specific criteria. The first one is the one that's very obvious. Your intestines must be able to effectively digest the food that you eat and absorb the food that you eat. That is the primary function. Okay, that is the first criteria of a healthy gut. Secondly, your gut must not have any specific gastrointestinal illness. Okay, it must not have ulcers, it must not have inflammation, like inflammatory bowel disease, and it must not have problems like cancers. So to have a healthy gut, it must be free from disease, it must be effectively functioning. It must also have a normal and stable intestinal microbiota. Your microbiota is the millions and billions of bacteria, the various bacteria that live in your intestines. We now are beginning to realize how important these visitors are. Actually, they're not visitors, they are permanent residents in our intestinal system. Okay, we don't really realize this until recently, that a normal and healthy gut bacteria, or what we call microbiota, has a major impact on your well-being. We'll talk about that. In addition to microbiota in the gut, you must also have an effective immune system in the gut. In other words, your gut must have a barrier to all the stuff that you eat. Imagine the stuff that you put into your intestines: sashimi, cockles, barely cooked food, and all that, salads and all that. So a lot of foreign material goes into your gut. So you must have a good and healthy barrier to prevent all these toxins from entering your body. Okay? And the last thing, to have a healthy gastrointestinal system, gut health, you must have a status of well-being. In other words, not just a normal gut, but a gut that actually gives you satisfaction. When you eat, you feel nice and full, and when you poo, you feel nice and evacuated and happy with your bowel habits. And that actually has a very major impact on your quality of life. Some people, they don't poo well, or they eat, they can't eat well, half a meal they feel bloated for many hours. Imagine that kind of life, okay? Or keep on going to the toilet, although they have nothing wrong, they go for checks and checks and checks, they find nothing wrong with them, but they don't have a good quality of life because their gut function is no good. So gut health is now of major importance to us. These are the few ways the gut can impact on us. Remember, we talked about these 2 things that go hand in hand in your intestines: the microbiota, the bacteria that live in the inside your gut, and your gut barrier. Okay. These 2 things contribute to effective nutrient and fluid uptake, so that you can have a you don't have problems with malnutrition. It should provide immune tolerance such that you don't get food allergens and other toxins entering your body that cause allergic reactions. It must provide a good defense against infections, okay? And it must have an effective signaling system to the brain, okay, that help to keep us happy as well. And this is the thing we want to talk about today. Your gut, your brain. We never realized this before, right? That your gut is connected to the brain. Do you? No? Huh? Okay. We'll talk about this specifically today. Okay, this is something that we know quite well now, which is quite interesting. These are the gut bacteria that live in your gut. And the healthy gut bacteria will break down the food you eat, specifically the fiber in your diet. It breaks down the fiber. The fiber is the food for the bacteria into important substances such as butyrate that provide food for your intestinal cells. Okay, so the intestinal cells actually live on energy that is provided by the breakdown of fiber by your microbiota. Okay, and this lining, the internal lining of your gut, has what we call tight junctions that prevent toxins from entering. Okay, so a healthy system, microbiome plus the barrier, is very, very important to maintain the integrity of your gastrointestinal system. Let's see what your microbiome are. The microbiome is microbiota is all the sum of all the bacteria that live in your gut. Okay, some of it is in the stomach, not much. A lot of it is in the intestines, and most majority of it is in your colon. So different parts of the intestine have different types of microbiota, and your microbiota can be either the good bacteria, the harmful bacteria, and the opportunistic bacteria. Opportunistic bacteria are those that usually do no harm. They usually do no harm, but when your gut is sick, then they become harmful to you. Okay, so whether you have good gut health or not depends on the balance of your bacteria, or whether you have more of the good bacteria or more of the harmful bacteria. So the functions of your gut microbiome, first of all, if you have healthy good bacteria, the healthy good bacteria will not allow foreign residents to come in. They are the permanent residents in your gut. They don't allow the foreign bacteria, the harmful bacteria, from colonizing your gut. Okay? They provide an immune system of the gut. They affect how you process energy. They prevent infections, and interestingly, they also modulate the environmental factors that cause cancer. So your microbiota can actually contribute to higher or lower risk of cancers, especially intestinal cancers, bowel cancers, especially colon cancers. That's why we say fiber prevents colon cancer. Everybody knows that, right? Eat more fiber prevents colon cancer. But now we're beginning to realize that the way they do that is by the protective effect of butyrate, which is broken down by the gut bacteria from the fiber. Okay? Now what is this? Okay, if you have an unhealthy gut bacteria or unhealthy barrier, these are some of the diseases you can get. For example, if you have an abnormal barrier, your gut barrier is unhealthy. Okay, the cells are unhealthy. You can get diarrhea, infections. You can get inflammatory bowel disease. You can get celiac disease, which is a condition where your body is intolerant of any gluten in the diet. You can get irritable bowel syndrome, a condition where your gut is very sensitive and very susceptible to any sort of irritation in the gut. If you have abnormal microbiota, it can also affect some of these diseases as well. So these are the intestinal problems that can happen when you have a poor gut health. Quite obvious, right? If you have poor gut health, you get intestinal problems. But this is not so obvious. These are the non-gut diseases linked to poor gut health. You can get autoimmune conditions. In fact, a lot of the autoimmune conditions are now suspected to be due to poor gut health or are worsened by poor gut health because even, it's not there, allergic conditions, even people with eczema, it could be due to poor gut health. Because if your gut is unhealthy, it is leaking toxins all the time into your body, allergens that can cause all these eczemas and allergic reactions. Okay? You can get chronic pain and fibromyalgia syndrome. Obesity is also related to poor gut health. Did you all know that? Interesting, huh? So in order for you to lose weight, the first thing you do is you must have good gut health. To have good gut health actually promotes proper metabolism in the body and setting your metabolism such that you have maintained a good healthy weight. The gut also affects fatty liver disease, and two of the things that affect the brain, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, are also suspected to be triggered or worsened by poor gut health. In fact, mood and major depression, anxieties and all that can also be affected by gut health. So the brain and your gut is actually intimately linked. Okay, intimately linked. What we call the brain-gut axis. Have you ever, been asked to talk in front of 200 people and you started feeling nervous, having butterflies in your stomach, and you wonder how that happens, right? It's your brain, right? Your brain is feeling nervous, but you feel the butterflies in your stomach. That's why we call your gut feeling your second brain. In fact, all the nerves in the intestinal system there's so much nerves in there that is thought to be almost like a second brain to us. Okay? So what we call the enteric nervous system, enteric just means intestinal. Okay? Intestinal nervous system consists of two layers of nerve cells lining the whole gut from the esophagus to the stomach to the small intestine to the large intestine. There are two layers of nerves. And these layers of nerves contain more than 100 millions of nerve cells. For all the way from the esophagus all the way to the rectum. And it's almost like a brain in there. If you pack all these nerve cells together, it can be a mini brain, your second brain. It is not a brain that allows you to do 1 + 1 calculation or intricate thinking, but it is something that is almost involuntary. It's doing its work all the time. It's sensing the environment in your gut, telling your brain, taking the signals from the brain to function properly. So it's a very interesting brain, the brain that functions without your control. But it does control things. It controls digestion, all the digestive process, and also it communicates with the brain all the time. What digestive processes? A lot of things go on when you eat. You don't realize, right? When you eat, the food goes down, the acid is produced, the stomach starts to move, it has an orderly movement so that the food is pushed down, right? It's not pushed up when you eat. So orderly movement down, then all the enzymes and all that are produced, not just by nerve cells. All these signals come from nerves as well as neurotransmitters, hormones and all that, chemicals that control all these processes that allow you to have good gut function. More than that, the gut also communicates with the brain. After you eat chicken McCrispy or whatever, it tells the brain, "Oh, I'm full." Have you ever realized how your stomach can tell your brain, "I'm full"? You had a big buffet, it tells, "Oh, brain, I'm full for tonight, no dinner. Had a nice Sunday brunch." Correct? It's so smart, right? Okay, it's so smart. That means somehow the gut actually communicates with the brain. Okay, that's very, very interesting. So the gut-brain axis, two ways. The brain talks to the intestine, and the intestine talks back to the brain. Okay, so the two brains are working hand in hand. And the way it does it is by all these things, neurotransmitters, the control of neuromuscular movement, stress hormones that are produced by the brain. For example, if you are put in a very anxious environment, you might suddenly let go and become incontinent, right? Sometimes it happens, right? You suddenly you need to go to the toilet straight away, or if not, you will let go. So these are what we call the stress hormones. They also affect the gut. So all these things these are the ways where the brain controls the gut, and in turn, the gut talks back to the brain by nerve signals, neuropeptides, immune signaling, small molecules like zonulin, which tells the brain, and also the production of short-chain fatty acids. We talked about butyrate. Butyrate is the breakdown product of the fiber from the microbiota. The butyrate actually also talks back to the brain. It signals back to the brain. Okay. In fact, now we even think of the gut-brain axis as not just the gut-brain axis, but the microbiota gut-brain axis. So important is the bacteria in the gut is part of the axis. So, if you have a healthy and balanced gut, okay, we have high diversity of microbiome and abundance of good bacteria. We call it eubiosis. That means everything is in balance. Your gut bacteria, your brain and your second brain, they're all talking nicely and working nicely. Okay? If you have dysbiosis, it means that there's either a state of pathogenic loss of microbiota diversity, dysbiosis, and that will lead to disease. Okay, we know you heard about functional gastrointestinal problems. A lot of people have functional gastrointestinal problems. For example, functional dyspepsia, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic intestinal pain. Actually, these people, they're very disabled. They have a lot of pain after they eat, or sometimes they feel very bloated, very uncomfortable. They have a lot of motility problems. Some of them have a lot of diarrhea. Some of them have a lot of constipation. 1 week still cannot go. So these are what we call functional problems, where if you investigate them, you do test and test and test, scope and scan and scan and scan, and blood tests and all the various tests, you find that there's nothing wrong. It's just that the function is wrong, and they are very, very sensitive. These are what we call functional gastrointestinal problems. And we find that in these people, after a while, the people will say, the one always stress causes all this. Stress causes them the pain, stress causes them the diarrhea. Correct? It's actually true. Because now we know that if you have anxiety or depression or stress in the brain, it can affect people with functional gastrointestinal problems. So if you have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, functional constipation, functional diarrhea, you have a functional bloating, functional dyspepsia, all these conditions are worsened if you are under stress, anxiety, or depression. Okay? Likewise, any problem in the gut, irritation in the gut system, sends a signal to the brain that can trigger mood changes. So they become anxious, they can become depressed. And we now know that people with functional gastrointestinal problems, they perceive pain stimulation more acutely than people who do not have functional gut problems. So the two people, right, one person with the irritable bowel syndrome, they may eat the same food, they may eat, but one person reacts to it much more differently because they have irritable bowel. They have a problem with their gut health, with the brain, and in the way that the two are linked together, that the brain perceives all this stimulation much more than a person who does not have irritable bowel syndrome. So that's the connection. We also now know that your gut actually can affect your mood. More than that, there is increasing evidence that your gut bacteria can cause mood changes and even depression, even anxiety. In fact, one of the therapeutic strategies now for people with major depression, that means they go into depression over something, is to actually promote their good gut health in order for them to get out of this depression. Interesting, right? Okay, now we talk about aging brain, right? We've been talking about aging the whole seminar. If you look at the way the brain ages and the effect of chronic stress on a young brain, the molecular events are almost similar. The changes you find in the brain are almost similar, whether you're under chronic stress or you're under the chronic influence of normal aging. Okay? And the aging brain and chronic stress talks to the gut as well. And if you have abnormal microbiota, it can affect all these processes. So normal problems that you get with aging brain, like cognitive impairment, anxiety, depression, reduced sociability, all this for a very long time we know is due to aging of the brain, like dementia setting in. We now know that it can be reproduced by chronic stress as well. And having a healthy gut may actually be one of the interesting therapeutic targets to decelerate the age-related decline in the brain. Okay? So when you have your brain ages, it starts to become less plastic. There is dysregulation of the immune system. Then you start to get brain disorders. So these similar changes are seen during chronic stress. And if you have both, if you have an aging brain plus stress, then the effect is almost devastating. Because the brain is really vulnerable, all these effects will make things even worse. Okay, and one of the ways that you might be able to protect your brain from aging and from the effect of stress on the brain is to actually have a healthy gut-brain axis, a healthy microbiota gut-brain axis. Okay? What is this? Okay, this is the slide to show how the gut bacteria actually affects cognitive decline. We talked about that just now. If you have an unhealthy gut, the gut is more permeable. And the permeable, that means it allows the toxins and all to enter the body. And these toxins, including LPS and other molecules, can cause the brain to go into a state of inflammation. Okay? This neuroinflammation in the brain leads to cognitive decline in the brain. Okay? On the other hand, if you have healthy gut bacteria, it actually helps to protect the brain against cognitive decline. That's quite interesting, right? Okay, now we talk about having an abnormal gut, leaky gut on the body. What makes your gut leaky? Okay, if you have a healthy gut, it should not be leaky. If you take one of the major factors, is your diet. If you have a lot of refined carbohydrates in your diet, sugars, processed food, processed meat, processed fats, that can actually disrupt the gut. It can affect your gut health and allow your gut to be leaky. Seed oils are bad. Seed oils are what we call omega-2s. You heard just now, right? Dr. Ramani said omega-3 is good, but omega-2 is bad. Remember, don't forget tonight. I've forgotten already what Dr. Ramani said. Memory loss. Remember the birth control pills, and all this can affect the microbiota, can affect the gut, can cause leaky gut, and all these problems that come with a leaky gut. So how do you promote good gut health? First of all, have adequate glutamine in your diet, have adequate fiber in your diet, but also pick your fiber, not just all types of fiber. The prebiotic fibers, the resistant starches are better. Eliminate pro-inflammatory stimuli, sugars, caffeine, seed oils, processed foods. Increase in your antioxidants, anti-inflammatory foods, like your fatty fish, your fermented foods, which are what we call prebiotics, and your antioxidants foods. All these are good. And of course, have adequate hydration in the gut. How to achieve good gut health? So diet, we talked about that. Avoid too much alcohol and especially tobacco. Improve your lifestyle with regular exercise. Regular exercise actually keeps the gut healthy. If you move a lot, if you exercise a lot, the motility of the gut improves. So that makes the gut healthy. Meditation also has a beneficial effect. Why? Because if you meditate, the brain is in a calm state. There is no chronic stress that signals to the gut. If necessary, supplement your diet with probiotics and prebiotics, and also prevent gut diseases, especially cancers, by doing periodic screening. Okay, so these are the things that will help you to achieve good gut health. Coming to the end. Okay, people always ask, what probiotic? Probiotic, I think, is something do we need to take probiotics? Okay, if you are young, if you're healthy, you take a good diet, maybe you do not need. But a lot of us with unhealthy gut or weak gut, taking probiotics is actually a good idea. And a lot of people, a lot of experts will say, take 1 week of probiotics every month and take a variety of probiotics. Which one to choose? I don't actually propose any particular brand or anything, but these are some of the guidelines. Different conditions actually require different kinds of bacteria. So some of the gut doctors that you see may prescribe you one probiotic over another probiotic, and you're wondering why. And the reason is for that particular disorder, maybe that particular strain of microbiota is useful. Okay, if you choose a probiotic from the shelf, diversity is more important than the count. Don't keep thinking how many colony forming units. This one got how many million? This one got how many million? It doesn't matter. The diversity of the bacteria in the probiotic is more important. Okay, and the delivery system. Delivery system is how you take it, whether it's in powder form, whether it's in a capsule form, or must it be stored in the fridge. To me, I think that try to avoid those that need to be stored in the fridge. Okay, because it's hard to store in the fridge. You've got to waste space in the fridge, correct? No, actually that's not the reason. The reason is the delivery guy, the delivery chain, what we call the cold chain, sometimes is maybe suspect. You might see it stored very well in the pharmacy. You bring it home very quickly and store it in the fridge very nicely. But what happens in between, you don't really know. The guy who deliver it might leave it in the corner for 2 hours, and then all the probiotic you eat actually dead because they require a cold temperature. Okay, so delivery system is also important. So choose those that have been manufactured that can be stored in room temperature for long periods of time. Those are more resistant to damage. So if you have conditions like these are the various types of bacteria that are beneficial to us. Lactobacillus, acidophilus, you get this in those cultured milk drinks like Yakult, Vitagen. They don't have a lot in those cultured milk drinks, but it's good to have a little bit if you like to drink those drinks, but they don't actually have a lot in there. So it's actually better to take those probiotic mixtures. So if you're looking for overall digestion health, you should be taking acidophilus. If you are going overseas and you've got a lot of travelers' diarrhea, Lactobacillus rhamnosus is actually believed to be important. The bifidobacteria are also important for nutrient absorption. Okay, don't need to know all this. Okay, but this is sometimes these are some of the reasons why your doctor may prescribe a certain probiotic over another probiotic for certain conditions that you have. For example, if you have women issues with always get fungal infections of the vaginal infections and all that, this one is supposed to be useful, this probiotic. Okay, coming to the end. Do you have good gut health, all of you? Huh? Don't know. Jenny, no?
Getting better.
Getting better. Okay. These are the ways we can test for your gut health. I think the first one is the most important. Subjective assessment of your own well-being. Are you happy with your gut? Whether you have problems all the time, always got pain or discomfort, whether you pass motion regularly, in the right form, the motion, and the right frequency. Okay, so these are what we call questionnaires and symptom scores. Okay, and then we can also do objective. These are subjective. In other words, we actually ask you whether your habits, what your habits are, and how happy you are with it. I'll show you an example in a while. Then you have really objective parameters of your function that we actually do tests to see whether your function is good, your intestinal integrity is good, whether you have intact immunity in the gut. And we can also analyze your gut bacteria. And finally, we should also test you to make sure that you do not have any gut diseases and also precancerous changes in the gut. Example, so these are the quality of life scores, gastrointestinal symptom scores that we use to check you for your gut health. If we do tests, we can test your gastric function, you can test the transit time, how it moves, whether your gut is permeable or not. Okay, so these are some of the tests we do. No need to know too much, except that if you do have problems or issues with your gut health, if you feel I think the first step is to ask yourself, good gut health or not. If you feel you have good gut health, I think that's good enough. But you find that you think you don't have good gut health, or you have a specific condition you feel may be related to your gut health. For example, you've got chronic eczema, or you've got autoimmune disease, or fatty liver, and you're wondering whether it could be due to your gut health, then you can come and then we'll do objective tests. Not all these tests all in one go, but specific ones depending on what we feel is necessary. We can even analyze your microbiota. We can take the stool sample to analyze what microbiota you have, and also analyze for things like calprotectin, which is an indicator of your gut health. Okay, so that's stool test. And finally, like I said, you should also make sure that you screen your intestines to make sure you don't have conditions like that are precancerous. So what we call gastrointestinal cancer screening. Okay, I think that is the final thing that all of us must do. We all used to say by the age of 50, all of us should go for your digestive endoscopy, check your stomach, check your colon for cancers. But now, increasingly, we realize that we should do it younger and younger. In fact, last year, 2018, the American Cancer Society recommended that everyone above the age of 40 should start. Okay, why 40? 45, sorry. 45. Why 45? Because in America, they realized that more and more younger people are getting colon cancer. And we also see the same trend happening in Singapore. In order for us to prevent colon cancers, colonoscopy screening is very important because you check the gut for precancerous conditions like colon polyps and all that. And removing these polyps can prevent your gut from, prevent these polyps from becoming cancerous. Yeah. Why are people getting colon cancers younger and younger? Not proven, but some people postulate that antibiotics for all these reasons. And how does antibiotics cause cancer? Don't know, right? But if you are very smart as listening there, you know the answer?
I think it makes your gut more permeable to the something.
No, the antibiotics actually affect your gut microbiota. Yeah, so it affects your gut microbiota. It affects the way it processes butyrate. Butyrate is cancer preventing. Fiber becomes butyrate after the microbiota eats the fiber. It produces butyrate, and butyrate has a cancer prevention effect. So if you take a lot of antibiotics when you're young, then it affects your gut microbiota. And that may account for the reason why more and more younger people are getting colon cancers now. May not be true, just hearing it from me. But I didn't hear from me, I actually hear from some interesting research that's been going on. Okay, interesting new research. I don't know whether it's going to be true or not. But I think it could be possible. It could be possible because it sounds very logical. So every time you take antibiotics, what should you do? If you have to take lah, but take probiotics together with it to replace the gut, your good bacteria. Otherwise, once it's wiped out, sometimes it's very hard to replace the probiotics, the microbiota, the good bacteria in the gut. So that's quite interesting. Oh, the last thing is, this is something a little bit related, but not so related. Nutraceuticals. Nutraceuticals is actually a huge, big industry in America. The nutraceuticals refer to commercially available products that are part of food. You know, it's like having your apple or your fruits in a capsule form in order to prevent and treat diseases. So nutrients from food as part of pharmaceuticals, so nutraceuticals. In other words, you're not taking medicine, but you're taking food as a medicine. Okay, it's a big industry, and that's why you go to Guardian, or there are lots and lots of supplements on the market. So a lot of people always ask, do I need supplements or not? What's the answer? No? Yes. Yes and no. Okay. If your gut is functioning healthily, absorbing nutrients well, you're having a very good healthy diet, and you're young, probably you don't need. Okay? Probably you don't need. But as your gut ages, you go into what we call the nutrient gap. The nutrient gap. Okay? As your gut ages, okay, currently a lot of us, our diet is actually not very healthy. We take too much calories, but yet not enough nutrients. Got such thing or not? Yes, right? The food you take is too much. There's really too much calories, but yet there's not enough nutrients in the food that you eat. Okay, and when you age, this nutrient gap ages because as you age, you need less and less calories, so you should be eating less. But yet, you need more and more nutrients. You need more and more micronutrients because as you age, these things need to be replaced and to keep you healthy. And as you age, your gut absorption of all these nutrients decreases. So you're really in a bind, right? But you need to eat less, but yet you need more nutrients. And your gut cannot even absorb the whatever nutrients that you eat, the micronutrients that you eat. Therefore, some people believe that as you age, you really should consider taking super nutrients to enhance your immunity, reduce oxidative damage as a form of anti-aging, and to prevent age-related disease and disability. I'm not selling it, but we do use. So for my patients and all that, we do give. These are some of the nutraceuticals that are thought to be important to prevent target diseases and conditions. Okay, don't need to know everything. In our clinic, what we use is our own. We look long, high and low for a single product that can actually provide all these nutrients. And this is quite interesting. Not selling again, not selling, but this is what we use. It's actually a supplement that is cultivated from Eugenia in Japan, in a place called Okinawa, where the humans live to more than 100 years old. So this is a little algae that has no cell wall. So this algae actually, because it has no cell wall, when you process it into a supplement, you are able to extract they are able to extract all these nutrients from it. And they add in a probiotic. We talk about probiotic, not a lot, but a probiotic. They add in some fiber as well in the form of pyramidol. So we call it an all-in-one super nutrient. So it may be something useful if you want to counteract the effects of aging and the decline in the body. I think so. Not 92. How old am I? Jenny knows that.
I think you're 35.
35? 54. 54.
But Looks very young, right, for 54.
Okay, that's the end of